Hi, I'm Sidney Nakahodo, founder and general partner of Seldor Capital. Welcome to our first annual meeting. Before we get started, I would like to tell a story about how we decided to launch our fund. What Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, Paul Allen, and Richard Branson have in common, besides being some of the most successful entrepreneurs of our time. They are also founders of space companies. They are driven by passion and also for the incredible opportunities that the space sector is creating. But their companies are only the most visible part of the space ecosystem. Not only are they paving the way, but they're also enabling startups to harness the power of space. Startups like Planet, which are combining the exponential growth of technologies with the Silicon Valley mindset to change the world through commercial space activities. That's why we launched Seldor Capital. Our goal is to support space businesses as they create humanity's path to the stars while positively impacting life on Earth. We hope you enjoy the program that we have put together to celebrate our first anniversary. We will start with a short overview of the fund and introduce our portfolio companies. In the second part of today's session, we will have guest speakers sharing thoughts about the evolving space startup ecosystem. Finally, we will end the day with an exciting networking session where everyone in the audience will have the chance to engage in brief one-on-one conversations. Let's begin. We are a VC firm based out of New York City that invests in space tech startups in US and soon globally. Our main differentiator is that we have specialists not only with expertise in space, but also broad business technology and international development experience. Next, I'd like to invite our venture partners to share a few words about their background and work at the fund. Let's get started with Alan Pereira.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Alan Pereira, Venture Partner and General Counsel for Seldor Capital. I've been with Seldor since the beginning, and we're all very excited to be, 1 year plus right now, working on this journey together. So thanks for joining us, and hope to get a chance to chat with everyone later. Thank you.
Next, we got on the stage Stephen Gonzalez.
Thank you, Sydney. Stephen Gonzalez, 32 years at NASA Johnson Space Center, the last dozen years working, trying to find startups and connect startups with NASA technology. That was where I first met Sydney, and he shared with me the vision for Seldor Capital and the unique opportunity that it brings for entrepreneurs and for growing the space ecosystem. So I'm excited to be here, and I'm excited to be part of this journey. Thank you, Sydney.
And now we have Roberto Alvarez.
Hey, Sydney, great to be here with you. And Roberto Alvarez, I've been working at the intersections of business, policy, technology for dozens of years now. I am a fallen engineer. I will share here on the chat my perspective on why space. It was just published in our very own blog, Seldor Capital's blog. But what I wanted to do here is maybe to invite all of you to think that we are in 1482. Columbus is raising money for the great explorations. That's where we are today in the space age. Wonderful to be here, Sydney, and everybody.
All right. We also have Thiago Alves, directly from the UK.
Hi, guys. Hi, everyone. Yes, I'm a fund manager myself, so I also started a few other businesses of my own. I've been involved for many years into intellectual property and innovation. And space is, I believe, it's going to be the biggest inspiration for us all. So, I'm involved with Sydney and the team, hoping to help and to get inspired, just like, all the LPs and so forth.
We have also a venture fellow, who is on a spring break, so she couldn't be joining us live, but she recorded a video.
Hello, my name is Claire Yang. I am a fellow for Seldor Capital, and I'm a current senior at Wellesley College, majoring in economics and Spanish. So great to be here.
We're supported by world-class advisors and cannot be thankful enough to Paul Brugil, Adil Rassi, and Mike Suprovici, who have been with us since the beginning. We're also thankful to organizations such as VC Lab, the National Venture Capital Association, and VCA, and Material Change Institute that have provided us mentorship and support system, without which we wouldn't be here today. Likewise, our service providers play an integral role in our success. About our journey, we joined VC Lab, an accelerator for new funds, in August 2020 at the height of the pandemic. This is a very selective program that received 1,000 applicants, and only 30 companies successfully managed to complete it. Among that small cohort, a few funds were invited to present at a venture forum in December in Silicon Valley. We were one of them, where we officially introduced Seldor Capital to the world. Since then, things have moved very fast. We secured our initial LPs in March and made our first investments in April of last year. By December 2021, we had 8 companies in our portfolio. Here's a sneak peek of the most promising space startups. You'll hear about them shortly. Some basic figures about where we currently stand. We focus on investments at the very early stage, primarily at the pre-seed and seed rounds. We will soon be adding 2 new startups to our portfolio. Our companies have been making fast progress, where most of them have either completed or are about to complete their seed funding round. We are also very proud to share that half of the startups we have invested in have women as founders or co-founders. How do we source our deal flow? We rely primarily on our ties to leading space and startup organizations, as well as our professional network. That gives us access to the most promising deals before you hear about them on TechCrunch or other media outlets. Besides rigorous due diligence, we select companies that can benefit from our mentorship, investment network, and industry connections. Next, I will share a couple of examples. First is Lone Star, a company that reached out to us through our network, still in stealth mode. Not only did we know the founder and trusted his ability to execute, but we were also impressed with his bold vision and creativity. We brought along a co-investor and have been connecting Lone Star with both corporate partners and clients for their lunar services. Once we identify a promising deal, we start working with them, even before they are formally added to our portfolio. One example is Aphelion, a company that is developing green solutions for launching and in-orbit services. Even though we only signed a term sheet recently, we have already been supporting them in their fundraising efforts and grant applications. For instance, we are unleashing funding from other investors that are relying on our due diligence to co-invest. You'll get to know more about Aphelion and our portfolio companies next. I'd like to invite to the stage Robert Alvarez, venture partner at Seldor Capital.
Welcome, everybody. Again, I'm Roberto Alvarez with Seldor Capital. Great to have you here. Our own Seldor Capital analysis has revealed a variety of opportunities in the space industry. In order to advance space exploration, we will need data storage capacity on space, data processing capacity, manufacturing capacity, the capacity to produce food and other things, but also lots of things on Earth. Having that in mind, we've been working to build Seldor Capital's portfolio. We already have a variety of portfolio companies that are addressing those issues. We have already invested in 8 startups. We're in the closing stages of closing another deal, and Sydney has already mentioned that to you. And Sydney has shown 2 different cases, one in which we have already executed investment and the other one that is in process, right? In both cases, we have not just funded the companies. We're working with founders, we're working with our startups to help them advance their businesses. We will hear from 90 startups today. From those, 7 already got revenue in different stages, different ways. Maybe some of them will change a bit, pivot, but 7 of them already got to revenue. Our average ticket, it's 100K US dollars, 100,000. We are a pre-seed fund. And the average lead time from the first contact to the first check, it's around 2 months. That helps us to balance a deep analysis of the business and the technology, but also speed, something that is fundamental as we all know. Our investments, that they are unlocking new sources of capital for companies and our portfolio companies. I think we will hear more about that. We've been, again, balancing our deep analysis with speed now. We have 2 batches, and between the 2, we'll have a quick conversation with one of our LPs. So let's go for the first batch, and these are the startups that you hear: Acor, Fusematic, Senvita Factory, SwissPod, and Interstellar Labs. Let's go for it.
My name is Cynthia Brazel, and I'm the CSO of Acor. My background is in marine and medical microbiology, and my expertise is with contamination control. Bacteria have hitchhiked up to the ISS, where they quickly develop resistance, degrade equipment, and contaminate life support systems, threatening astronaut health, long-term space travel, future space living, and cross-contamination back to Earth. The bacteria in the ISS water systems have become resistant to silver, the antimicrobial of choice, and it has already resulted in loss of hardware, impact to system operations, and increased resupply. To tell you why Acor is uniquely positioned in this space, I will take you back to our origin story. I discovered novel bacteria from the coral reef environment that produce natural antimicrobials. Acor's treatments either kill or inhibit the growth of a wide range of bacteria and fungi that contaminate surfaces and water, including resistant strains. Acor has developed non-toxic surface cleaners, water treatments, and industrial process enhancers for use from deep sea to deep space. Acor's water treatments were validated by NASA Marshall Space Flight Center to successfully eliminate 99.999% of contamination for the water recycling system used on the International Space Station. Contact us if you'd like to know more. Thank you.
Senvita Factory started out by creating a microbe that could be sent into deep space and help astronauts survive on long exploration missions by converting the carbon dioxide they exhaled into glucose, a sugar which is a building block for many essential nutrients. However, with the climate crisis looming back here on Earth, Senvita's team quickly realized the potential of microbes to help industrial sectors reduce their carbon footprint and create new revenue streams from their emissions. Senvita's diverse team of scientists and engineers help clients assess their chemical operations and then create a customized microbe to aid in their decarbonization. Using their synthetic biology platform, Senvita can reprogram microbes to absorb carbon dioxide and convert it into valuable organic chemicals. For example, scientists at Senvita were able to reprogram a microbe to make ethylene, one of the most commonly used industrial chemicals. How? It turns out that bananas have an enzyme that naturally creates ethylene during the ripening process. Senvita engineered this gene into a microbe that naturally absorbs CO2. Now, this microbe uses CO2 as a raw material to create bioethylene. Moreover, Semvita has identified over 30 critical chemicals that can be made using their CO2 utilization synthetic biology platform. Let's stop emitting CO2 and start utilizing it instead. Contact Semvita today and let's go carbon negative, climate positive.
Good day, folks. My name is John Griffin. I'm the CEO of Fusematic Corporation. We're a Seldor Capital portfolio company. They invested in us last year. We're excited about that. We're honored. We're an engineering, design, and manufacturing company. We design portable rotary friction welding machine tools. These tools are used for welding engineered fasteners, deep sea, terrestrially, and eventually, I hope, in outer space. I look forward to meeting with you all one-on-one, if possible, or in a group during this first annual meeting, and going in further detail about our technology and our product and service offerings, product support service offerings that we're offering in the industries. Maritime, the energy, the military, and hopefully soon to be the space, commercial space ventures industries. Thank you for your time. Bye-bye.
Hey everyone, this is Dennis Tudor, CEO and co-founder of Swisspot. Intercontinental high-speed transportation is reaching its limits in terms of speed, convenience, cost and sustainability. A new paradigm is needed. Our moonshot mission is to develop a technology platform that enables Hyperloop, the new transportation paradigm. We envision a continental map of connections between major cities that will facilitate collaboration and accelerate human progress. Just as putting a man on the moon radically advanced many industries, the requirements of Hyperloop push the technology beyond the state of the art. One example of our modular approach is the propulsion system, for which development is well underway in partnership with two local universities. This project is valued at $4.5 million and it is funded by the Swiss government, with the goal of developing, testing, and validating fundamental assumptions related to propulsion. The outcome of this project is a propulsion system that can be used not only in Hyperloop but also in rocket launchers. Our roadmap is planned for the next 10 years, with revenue being generated starting from 2025. We are well positioned to lead the Hyperloop industry, supported by strategic partnerships and investors that either enhance our market position, offer access to talent pool, or generate essential IP. Looking forward to see you at Seldor annual meeting.
Hi everyone, my name is Barbara Belvisi. I'm the founder and CEO at Interstellar Lab. So at Interstellar Lab, our mission is to design and to build pods where we recreate the perfect condition for life to thrive. And we do that on Earth, but also in space. So we're a team of 23 people coming from amazing companies like SpaceX, Thales, NASA, Trimble, Dassault, Disney, just to name a few. And we've been working over the past 2 years in building those inflatable solutions. Our first product is called Biopod, so it's an inflatable dome where we recreate the perfect condition for plants to grow. We have a terrestrial product. We're working on our low Earth orbit product and lunar product with space agency like NASA and CNES. And we, after building several prototypes, we are now moving into production, and we are ready to ship our first units to our customers before the end of this year. We're very lucky to have Seldor, who joined our recent round. We raised a total of 5 million in seed, and Seldor has been an amazing partner, and we're very lucky to have them on board. Thank you, and looking forward to meet you all very soon.
Luis, welcome, and thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you, Sidney, for the opportunity. Thank you.
Luis, why don't we get started by asking you, why are you investing in space?
Well, space has been a passion for me since I was a little kid. I've always dreamed of being part of a space project. In a trip in 2016 to the Silicon Valley, I met a founder of a nanosatellite company, and it was when everything began. And over the last 6 years, I've dedicated myself to learning more about the sector. And despite being a very long-term investment, I realized that it would be worth it. Now, we are not only doing nanosatellites, but a whole space program.
Oh, fantastic. By the way, Luis is the CEO and founder of Two Future Holdings. And Luis, would love to hear like why and a little bit about your space investments. You mentioned this nanosatellite company. Can you tell us how you're investing in space?
Okay. Well, I have two direct investments, looking for a third at the moment, and I also invested in Seldor. The first was one in hypercubes. Initially, it was meant to be a hyperspectral imaging nanosatellite company. However, a full space program has been built, and we are looking to have it operational by 2020, by the end of this year, beginning of next year. Unfortunately, I can't give you more details since we are still in stealth mode. And the second one was just actually has just left the stealth mode. The company is called Lone Star. I believe that you all seen this company in the video moments ago. And this company leads, I mean, Chris spoke about the company already, but Lone Star promises to disrupt the global data storage industry from the moon. Amazing, right?
Absolutely. And Luis, we'd love to hear why you decided to invest in Seldor Capital and hopefully inspire some of our participants here to do the same.
So I decided to invest in Seldor Capital because of the respect that I think people have, people from the industry has to you, Sydney, and to your partners. Although it's a newborn fund, I'm extremely confident that it will be very successful. And I can also say that Seldor is opening interesting doors for me.
Excellent. And something that, to be more spontaneous, because we have a little bit of time here, Luis, what's the dream company that you're looking for? You mentioned that you're looking for new investments. How can you help you?
Oh, actually, you've been already helped me a lot by introducing me to a lot of interesting people. As I said, you are opening a lot of doors. And well, I mean, I still want to meet the other partners in person, but you're doing a great job. Thank you.
All right. No, thanks so much, Luis. Really appreciate your participation here and your support to our companies.
Thank you.
I hope you have enjoyed our first batch, and you may be thinking, what do those companies have to do with space? We saw some connections, but please have in mind that all companies in Seldor's portfolio are aiming high in terms of going up and doing things on space, but also they have applications on Earth. In this first batch, we had companies that are primarily working on Earth at this point, but they're developing solutions that will be relevant for space exploration. We will need construction in space. We need tools for that. We need to manufacture fuel, fertilizers in space. One of the companies, Senvita, is on track to do that. We need to produce food on space. We need to take care of the safety and security of astronauts, including biosecurity. Acorn is targeting that. Sweet Spot, which is really addressing critical issues related to infrastructure and transportation on Earth, is developing cutting-edge solutions that may be applicable in space in the future. The second batch that we will watch now, we watch the presentations, has a different characteristic. You will see that those are primarily space companies, but those technologies will surely have an impact on Earth. So let's go from then. And the companies that we have in this second batch are Rogue, Lunasonde, Aphelion, and Lone Star. Let's watch what they are doing.
What we're doing at Rogue Space Systems is the kind of thing that we saw growing up, going to the movies. We're making real life space robots that are capable of doing some really incredible and amazing things. This is something that doesn't currently exist.
What we do is rapid innovation of satellite technology for whatever is needed up in space.
Our team is made up of a number of different engineers and scientists all across the defense and aerospace industries. We have everyone from physicists to mechanical engineers, electronics engineers, machine learning, artificial intelligence.
This is just an unprecedented time in the privatization of space. I feel like we're pioneering. I think we have some more innovative approaches than some of our competitors, and we're excited to test them out.
I'm Jeremiah, and this is Aaliyah, and we are the co-founders of Lunazon. Lunazon makes the underground world visible, fundamentally transforming our understanding of the planet we live on. Through our revolutionary ultra-low frequency radar, Lunazon is pioneering subsurface imaging. We use the data collected via satellite to create a true 3D map of the Earth's subsurface. You can think of us like an MRI scanner for planet Earth. 2022 has been an exciting year so far. We closed our seed round, expanded our team, and sent our very first satellite to space. We have 7 more launches planned for this year, as well as continuing to expand our team to support our growth.
We couldn't have gotten to where we are without the support of investors like Seldor. Beyond their capital investment, Seldor has provided us with introductions to their network and invaluable advice. We're really looking forward to growing together in the years to come.
Phelion Aerospace started in 2017 when we noticed that the demand for ultra-low-cost turnkey launch services, satellite manufacturing, and mission operations dedicated to the nanosatellite community was not being met by large launch providers. This continues to inhibit the growth, mass adoption, and utilization of the nanosatellite platform. Our mission is to solve that problem. For nanosatellites, we believe the answer lies in going the opposite direction and scaling down the vehicle massively. We intend to achieve this with our proprietary, environmentally friendly propulsion technology, which is non-toxic and non-cryogenic. With this and other advanced technologies, we hope to reduce launch cycles to within 1 week and launch on demand within 24 hours notice from non-traditional locations around the globe. At our core, we have a vision to democratize access to space by offering complete end-to-end services to nanosatellite operators at prices dramatically lower than the industry average. We hope to open up space to a vastly greater number of users and drive the growth of new possibilities in exploration, technology development, and commerce to make the 21st century truly the space age for everyone.
Hello, my name is Chris Stott, CEO and founder of Lone Star Data Holdings, and on behalf of all at Lone Star, a sincere thanks for your investment in us. We're working to put the first data centers on the lunar surface to meet existing demand in disaster recovery as a service and edge processing markets. In essence, we're leveraging Earth's largest satellite, the Moon, as the ultimate location for data storage, backup, and restore for the entire planet. By way of update, we have customers confirmed for our disaster recovery and edge processing offerings. We've contracted our first lunar landing with Intuitive Machines of Houston, Texas, who are in turn leading America's return to the Moon through NASA's Commercial Lunar Payload Services, or CLPS program. Our first payload, our first data center, is under contract with SkyCorp of Santa Clara, California, Further, the exterior design of that payload has been contracted to Bjarke Ingels, world-renowned architect, in a first in space. So form will match function and drive a sincere marketing and sponsorship opportunity for us, which has been handled by Purpose Entertainment. Our test on the International Space Station went well, confirming for us the team of Canonical, ourselves, if for data storage, machine learning, blockchain, and we actually created the first edge of network data center on the International Space Station. Some press on that, but our real reveal from stealth is coming in the next few weeks. Jose Hernandez, a retired astronaut, has joined our team on the board of advisors and is helping us in mission planning. And really, thanks to you at Seldor, we're able to make this happen. So our sincere thanks, and we look forward to seeing you on the moon soon. Thank you.
I hope you have enjoyed the second batch. As I had said, most of the startups that we have here are primarily targeting direct activities on space, but also they're expected to have a fundamental impact on Earth for, let's say, coming from disrupting maybe geological discovery on Earth to securing data. Imagine in the future, maybe we can even build a data backup of our own planet on space. I hope you have enjoyed that. You have noticed some of the differences. Again, just have this in mind. This feels like 1482. Columbus is raising capital to develop, not just to go and explore the world, but also to build the technologies that will be needed for that. This is the moment. This is a super exciting moment. We would be delighted to have you with us in that journey. Sydney, over to you again.
Next, we're moving to our presentation on the state and trends of the space industry. I'd love to get back on the stage my dear friend, venture partner, Steven Gonzalez, who spent more than 30 years at NASA, is going to share some of his wisdom with the audience here. Thanks, Steven, and welcome back.
Excellent. Thank you, Sydney. And thank you for the opportunity to be able to share what is going on in the astropreneurial community. So for those that aren't familiar, the term astropreneur is something that is growing in the space industry, and it is just a shortcut for saying space entrepreneurs. But what we're finding, and what Seldor Capital does specifically, is support 3 different types of astropreneurs. See, whenever you think about entrepreneurs, you think of Elon Musk, as Sydney shared at the beginning, Jeff Bezos, you think of the Billionaire Club. But in reality, it's easy to think of the portfolio companies that we have as those that provide assets or allow us to launch into space, or your in-space entrepreneurs. Then you have a set of our companies that are what we call on-Earth entrepreneurs, that take data, that take information, that take resources from space and be able to benefit markets back here on Earth. And the third one, and this is where Seldor is definitely, I believe, the only one playing in this market, and has an incredible rich opportunity for Seldor, is what we call the spin-off entrepreneur, where we look for companies that take space technologies and spin them off into other industries. Perfect example of this is Interstellar. One of the things that Interstellar did in their biopod was to take technology from the International Space Station for lighting, to be able to improve crop growth. They embedded it into the system with other technology to be able to improve and create a whole improved habitat for growing future crops, either in space or on the moon. And so these astropreneurs are part of the ecosystem because they feed back technologies eventually that will support the total ecosystem. So these 3 astropreneurs that work together to grow the market, take out each one of these pieces and the ecosystem wouldn't be as rapidly growing as it is right now. With the space spin-off entrepreneur, what I love about it, and this is what brought me to Sydney in the first place, is that it supports the second part of the Seldor thesis, which is to be able to take technology and benefit according to the United Nations Sustainability Goals. So we look for companies that provide sustainable resources, clean water, clean air, that allow for enhanced crop growth here on the earth. And then those companies eventually, as we're seeing, will be able to support us in the future. But it is these three categories, and it's amazing how over the 255 companies that we looked at in the year 2021, we went through 255 that brought to us and finally made the investment in the 9 that you've seen. About half of them are on-earth entrepreneurs, half of them are entrepreneurs, and a handful, but a growing number, are those space spin-off entrepreneurs. So what is this market? What do we see? It is a very fast-growing market. As you'll see here in the slide, over the last 20 years or so, the total investments has been about 36 billion. But in that time frame, you'll see from the chart on the bottom right-hand corner that just in the last 5 years, you've seen 7 years, you've seen 26 billion of that investments made. And the number, and you see from the chart how quickly that's growing. And in 2020, over 7.5 billion was invested in space startups. So there is a recognition in the industry that this is now a growth opportunity. This is a place where you can invest in startup companies and with a potential return, and some of them have already exited. And what's wonderful about this is that a lot of the venture funds that are contributing to this are industry agnostic. They're not looking for a specific industry. And so what we've seen in Seldor time and time again is that companies will look to see what a space venture fund like Seldor is doing. And depending on what we decide, they may choose to follow on and do their investment. So what Seldor is, again, uniquely positioned in the market is that we have the expertise, as Sydney has shared, to be able to understand the technology, understand the opportunity, understand the potential, and to see whether or not it's investment. We've gone through 255 companies to be able to come to these 9 fantastic companies that we have. And there's a recognition in the industry that we have this expertise and being able to pick fantastic companies. And I wanted to say that all this information is from an independent organization, Bryce, that has provided reports to NASA, that does industry reports as far as the growing trend. And this data here is from a 2021 report that they did on the growth of the startup ecosystem. That the exits, as I said before, there are already exits, and there is a growth of SPACs, of these special purpose vehicles that are enabling these space startups to be able to exit and to return back to the investors a return on their investment. And you see how it's grown over the last 3 years. And you see that 5.1 billion has been invested in these companies here, and the total market of these dozen or so companies is 27 billion. So it is an opportunity where originally I had attended an event last year where the perception was that if you invest in space, it's kind of like a medical device. You have to wait a long time before you see a return, but that's no longer the case. When you invest in space, we're seeing returns on incredible companies in a shorter period of time, more like some of the other tech firms that are out there. And so it's a wonderful time to be able to be involved in this ecosystem, and it's only going to continue to grow. And where are the opportunities for growth? Well, on the next slide, Bryce shares with us some of the potential markets. As you see here, they've captured in the growth for the coming year about 6 different markets. And it's interesting because as we were reviewing the report, it's amazing how through our own expertise and our own teaming, we actually end up investing in a lot of the growth areas. For example, the first one is LEO constellations. And they see that there's a lot of opportunities, a lot of growth, and a lot of appetite for these constellations, either in telecom or Earth observation. Everyone knows about SpaceX and their internet capability in space. But this Earth observation, being able to look at the Earth, be able to understand what's going on, is, as you heard from Lunasan, its mission. And they're looking to put a constellation up there in space to be able to provide this continuous monitoring of the Earth and to be able to map underneath the surface. So one great growth area is that. The second one is these constellations continue to grow. As these constellations are populating up in space, they are going to need servicing of those vehicles. They're going to need servicing of the growing constellation capabilities in space. They see it, things to be able to extend the life of large satellites, or to be able to big hot topic and still looking at is how do you remove debris and provide in-space transportation between various orbits and to go to the moon. And then how do you extend the sustainability of this growing ecosystem? And as you heard from Rogue Space, that's what their focus is in order to be able to help that growing ecosystem out there, to be able to help participate in the removing of debris up there, and to be able to partner up with other organizations to be able to take advantage of those assets up there, to be able to continue to grow the ecosystem in space. And then, from my own background at NASA for 32 years, and still a love of mine is the growth of human spaceflight. And we saw last year the inspiration that got me to NASA, Star Trek, William Shatner, going up into space at the age of 90. And we're just going to see more and more of that on Virgin Galactic and on Blue Origin and Axiom with their commercial astronauts, and eventually soon with their commercial space station. That's just going to continue to grow. And as they do, there'll be needs to be able to support these different tourists that go up into space. No longer do you have astronauts that have gone through a rigorous medical screening to be able to make sure that they can sustain the conditions in space. Now we're going to have a very different community, and more startups will be needed to be able to support the different community that will find themselves in space and on the lunar surface. And then for those that aren't familiar with exploration activity, you had heard from Lone Star, their activity with intuitive machines that is sort of part of the overall Artemis mission. Artemis including the commercial lunar payload system, and the NASA's Artemis mission is being able to help to go to the moon and be able to understand how to have extended presence and life on the moon. And what's wonderful about that program is the international aspect of it. And Seldor Capital is plugged into that international community, because NASA is continuing to extend the Artemis Accord to European nations, to South American nations, including Brazil, all of these, to be able to ensure that the moon is a place for international cooperation and benefit. And so we see that as an opportunity. And as the more that they provide resources there, the more opportunities for startups to be able to support them. And then when it comes to small satellite launch, it is something that they're seeing a growing trend on. They're seeing an opportunity for that. Now that it's getting to the point where even colleges and high schoolers can get their own launches because of the price point that's coming down, there's going to be a huge opportunity for new CubeSats and new capabilities. And as you heard earlier, Aphelion is perfectly poised for that, to be able to support that market, to be able to provide CubeSats into space and to be able to provide it on demand anywhere in the world. And then finally, the last area of growth that they see as a potential is national security. And in national security, they see a growing demand for on-demand launches of small capabilities, small launches, which is a Aphelion. They see an on-demand need for capabilities that Seldor is supporting from foreign governments. They're looking for investments that are happening within the U.S. to support the needs of countries all around the globe. And so Seldor, with its relationships and its connection, is uniquely poised to be able to support those needs of other nations with the team and the capabilities and the resources that we have here in the U.S. And then finally, as a teaser for the conversation that we have later on this afternoon, the lunar ecosystem. This is, for me, on the next slide, the exciting portion of all that's going on. With everything that we shared and the growth of these three groups of entrepreneurs on Earth, in orbit, and space spinoff, seeing them all coming together to be able to grow this ecosystem, we're seeing something phenomenal happen on the moon. we're seeing, as you'll hear in a few moments, the co-creation of an ecosystem. Chris had mentioned earlier, he's providing a backup storage system on the moon. But in parallel to that, you have Intuitive Machines that are providing the launch systems to be able to deliver payloads to the moon. In parallel to that, we have another company that we're in conversation with, Lunar Outpost, building a robotic system that will be going on that same mission to the moon in December. At the same time that Lunar Outpost is delivering payloads from Nokia Bell Labs that is building a communication system on the moon. And another company is providing solar power generation beaming from above the moon to the moon surface. Another one is providing additional edge computing. So all of these startups are all building capabilities simultaneously, not waiting for one to develop it before they move on. Lone Star isn't waiting for a power system to be able to be in place to be able to continue on the growth of his company. It's going on while other things are happening in parallel. And just in the next 2 years, there are already 7 missions planned between Intuitive Machines, Astrobotics, and other partners to go to the moon. So between the co-creation, the inventiveness, the vision of all of these startups, the moon is going to explode. And not in the Space 1999 way, but in a way that allows opportunities for investments and growth. And what I love finally on this lunar ecosystem is that it departs from what NASA had always said. NASA has seen the moon as a launching place to go to Mars. For the entrepreneurs that we're supporting, for the entrepreneurs that you'll hear from in a little while, there is a real business reason to go to the moon. There's a real market. There's real money to be made to be able to support both the industry back here on Earth and industry that's going to be growing on the moon. And because of their capabilities, it's going to draw and going to bring more people to the lunar surface and to be able to grow the community there. So the next couple of years is a phenomenally exciting time in the space community. And what I love is that Seldor is right smack dab in the middle with all the networks and relationship to see the mushrooming of this space ecosystem. And so with that, Sydney, I'll turn it back over to you for the next part of the program.
And with us on the stage, it's my pleasure to get Michael Moreno and Reza. I think you're also on board here. Reza and Nick Farjan. Steven, you already know, a venture partner who spent 30 years at NASA. Michael is a business development manager from AWS, who has played an increasingly important role in the development of the space ecosystem. And Reza comes from the Exim Bank, the Export-Import Bank of the United States. So we are all involved with the space startup ecosystem in many ways, supporting space companies at different stages. And that's the whole idea, because as we know, in paraphrasing the old proverb, it takes a village to raise a space startup. Right? So it's my great pleasure. And before we get started, I would like to ask Mike, for instance, first, could you tell us a little bit about what AWS is doing on the space and on the space scene?
Yeah, of course. So we have a few different teams and a lot of people looking at space and helping develop the space ecosystem. And Stephen, I really appreciate that slide and the whole talk that you just gave, because like I've been doing this for a couple of years now. I get really excited when I see that. And these are companies that I know and I work with, but like you just summed up the reason why I think we're all so excited about space. So AWS, I'm on the public sector VC and startups team. Our job is to help VCs and startups who are working in the public sector, and my focus is space and national security. So I focus on both of those, and they often come together, as you mentioned. We also at AWS have the Aerospace and Satellite Solutions team. That's created about 2 years ago. It's led by a former Air Force Major General, Clint Crozier, who helped plan for and stand up Space Force. He's now leading that team. And we have about 500 years of space operations experience on the bench at that team. Folks like Tom Soderstrom, who is a CTO at JPL, Peter Marquez, who is our head of space policy, who wrote the last 2 space policies in 2010 and 2020 for the US government. And we are all about supporting the space customers I created and launched and am running the AWS Space Accelerator. Happy to talk more about that. But really, it's all about making our space startups massively successful. And we have a lot of tools and resources to do that. And that's how Sydney and I got to know each other, and Stephen as well.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Mike. And Reza, hailing from DC, thanks so much for joining us on short notice. We really appreciate your availability. And from the Exim Bank, can you tell us about your work with the space startups?
Of course. And thank you, Sydney, and the Seldor Capital team for giving me the opportunity to join this STEAM group of reps. And by the way, congratulations on your first annual meeting. So as you noted, Reza Nikfarjam, I'm the industry rep for the global tech sector at the Export-Import Bank, also known as XM or XM Bank. So XM is an 88-year-old independent federal agency of the U.S., and with the primary mission of supporting creation of jobs here in the United States by facilitating export sales. This facilitation is in the form of trade finance and insurance products. And we have a host of products that, some directly assist U.S. exporters, and some of them actually help their international customers be able to buy U.S. goods and capitalize the cost of that purchase using term loans. And this also includes space systems, anything from satellite systems, launch services, ground segment, launch insurance, and newer applications of space, including Earth observation and others.
Excellent, Reza. And if we understand correctly, like you guys tend to work more at later stage companies, right? Can you give us some examples of companies that you have supported recently?
That's right. Yeah. So just for reference, the bank has been at the forefront of supporting the space sector almost from its inception. We started with financing the Intelsat ground stations for various countries. The first orbiting satellite that we financed was for the government of Indonesia back in the 70s. We were instrumental in helping SpaceX export their Falcon 9 from their early days back in early 2010s. Just in the last decade, we supported $5 billion of satellite systems and space systems exports, mostly in the geo. Now, it's a very exciting time in the industry with the proliferation of low Earth orbit and emergence of the commercial NGSO applications since 2015. We've been following the industry. Some of these companies that we first spoke with grew from a team of 5 to now, $1 billion market cap just under 7 years. So, we do get in touch with earlier stage companies as well, just to, kind of help them. But I can, shed more light on, what type of companies that we can support.
Absolutely. And Mike, you guys work with more earlier stage companies, so we see that these approaches are complementary. Same question for you. Can you give us some examples of things that you've done, and more specifically, with which companies you've worked with?
Yeah, so for us, for what it's worth, a startup is anyone pre-exit. So really, if it's two founders in a garage all the way up to, we've worked with Series C, D, and beyond. Our sweet spot tends to be around seed, Series A and B, because that's where I think we can, do the most good and add the most value. But really, we're having conversations all over the spectrum. I'm just going to think to something very recent. You mentioned Lunar Outpost. They were in our first Space Accelerator cohort. I was with Justin at South by Southwest this last week, and still having great conversations and helping them in any way that we can. But also recently, I've been working with a lot of AWS startups on support to Ukraine, for example. So companies like Capella, ISci, Black Sky, Satellogic, Ursa Space are all companies that we've been involved with that are doing incredible things right now. And it's all like, whether it's working on a humanitarian issue, putting our startups together with government customers like the Ukraine in this case, or helping out decide which term sheet to accept, that we're working with startups on all fronts.
And we're curious, Mike, why is Amazon so interested in space, apart from the fact that the CEO is the owner of a space company?
Yeah, so I should say, Blue Origin is totally unrelated to Amazon, but for the fact that they both have Jeff Bezos in common. Obviously we're developing the Kuiper constellation that's also very far removed from what I do at AWS. Everything that we do is working backwards from a customer. So we saw that there were a lot of AWS applications with space customers across the spectrum. And the way we were organized, we didn't have a common space team to support them all with space expertise. So we created one. And space is inherently a data intensive market. And that's someplace where cloud computing can do a lot of good. I'm sure you all know the stats, maybe 11,000 satellites in space in the last, since we started in human history, with another 50 to 100,000 in the next decade plus. So that's a lot of data that needs to be processed. And, we're here for that.
Excellent. And before getting back to our guest speakers, I'd like to ask Stephen, who spent several decades with NASA. Stephen, can you share with us your perspective on how the space ecosystem has changed over time, and if you're excited about what you're seeing right now?
Oh, absolutely. When did strategy for NASA back in the 2006 timeframe, and we were looking back then about how NASA would shift with the growing space economy. Back then in 2006, Elon Musk still wasn't successful, still blowing up rockets. People had heard rumors of Jeff Bezos and Blue Origin, but it's been interesting over the last 15, 16 years to see how NASA has helped to seed commercial space. Of course, with this commercial crew and cargo program, it was able to help to support SpaceX and be able to create opportunities for other companies. With the commercial lunar payload system, it also is doing things to be able to encourage the growth of the lunar ecosystem. So NASA has played a role in that, but the real growth from that and what NASA was looking for is the investments from the private side. And so it is looking for the opportunities to seed, but it needs organizations like Seldor and other venture communities to be able to support the growth, because NASA cannot put all the investment into it. It will continue to support new technology development through small business innovative research, small business technology transfer. It does things to support like Semvita did with this NASA iTech program, but it is up to the private industry to actually enable the growth of this new ecosystem.
Absolutely. And we know that larger organizations, particularly government organizations, they tend to move slower, right? But eventually they catch up. So Reza, to what extent you've seen also those changes reflected at Exim Bank?
So we see that also as well, because historically the type of companies that we've supported were your prime defense contractors, right? And then the landscape is shifting very fast with the emergence of the LEO constellation and small players both on the launch side and on the manufacturing side. So we see a lot of new private players coming to Exim Bank seeking financing either for themselves or if there is some sort of manufacturer or service provider for their international customers. And we have products that would address the needs of both groups.
Excellent. And talking about public-private partnerships right now, I wonder if the both of you, Michael, Reza, and also Stephen, might recall some examples of some successful examples of where these collaborations have created synergies and supported startups.
I spent about 10 years in the government, so I really appreciate being in the private sector and being able to work with our friends and partners in the government. We have probably close to 9,000 government agencies using our services. And so we work with a lot of innovation commands here in the US, like SpaceWorks and AFWorks, DIU, NavalX. And we're always looking for ways to help them find their startups and help our startups understand, leverage those platforms for how to enter the government. So AFWorks has been really good for this. SpaceWorks, we're having great conversations with them, and they're all over the world. It's not just in the U.S.
What I would add on to that is with NASA, it's been very creative in trying to create public-private partnerships to enable to support startups. So my favorite example is what you and I did, Sydney, with the New York Space Alliance, being able to take NASA technology and connect it to the New York ecosystem. NASA created a partnership with the community in Puerto Rico, a group called Parallel 18, to be able to seed companies there. Down in Brownsville, Texas, there's a group down there, Expanding Frontiers, a new partnership there to be able to move technology to support the growing startup new space ecosystem down there. So lots of interesting relationships with incubators, accelerators. It works with organizations like Mass Challenge in Houston to be able to find innovative ways to bring the NASA expertise, technologies, and capabilities to the entrepreneur community.
Oh, fantastic. And as we move forward, how do you see the space ecosystem evolving, right? I guess this collaboration between private and public will continue to evolve, to develop. In which ways do you see some big changes happening far ahead, just same we've seen in the past 10 years?
So you mentioned, Stephen, you mentioned the Nokia payload on the Lunar Outpost rover. And this is Nokia is paying to put a 4G LTE network on the moon. And that's a really exciting development. And everything about the cislunar economy and the lunar economy is very exciting. And I feel that a lot of folks think this is 10, 20 years away, but it's happening this year, that there are commercial companies paying for payload space on the moon. And I think that we're just seeing increasingly, like every step of the way, on-orbit refueling, on-orbit robotics and manufacturing, lunar power systems and rovers and resource harvesting. There's more and more commercial money going into that. And I don't think we're going to displace the government contracts anytime soon. We're going to need those for a long time to come. But let me just reference another example that I mentioned. In the Ukraine, we're seeing commercial space companies working with nonprofits and NGOs and using space technologies. And there's this entire decision loop, and governments are not involved at all. So this is an economy that I think commercial space is really going full steam ahead.
There's going to be a lot of viable NGSO low Earth orbit commercial applications, because I've been going to two conferences on an annual basis. The one in DC, Washington DC, the satellite conference, and also the one in Paris, which is the satellite finance conference. Every year from 2017 till the last year, it was like they didn't really see the geostationary players didn't really see LEO players as a threat, right? They said, oh, maybe one of them will survive or 12 of them will survive, and then it kept changing. And a lot of the geo players put their plans on pause because they saw that LEO applications are becoming a lot more viable. To now, if you're going to the last few years of last maybe 2 years of the conferences, you'll hear that actually some of these geo players want to partner with the LEO or acquire the LEO operators. So I think going forward we'll see a lot of these LEO applications.
I totally agree. I think this like binary view of it's either GEO or LEO is a little bit myopic, and I say that as a guy that used to work at a primarily GEO company, a company that made GeoSats. I won't say which one. You can check my LinkedIn. But really, the strength is in those hybrid networks, right? Like there's an argument for both the bandwidth economics of GEO and the resilience of LEO and everything else in between. But I'm a big believer in balance, and hybrid networks are the future.
And so, Sydney, for me, two things. The first is a much longer conversation, but I think when it comes to public-private partnerships, the role of NASA is going to shift over the next 10, 15 years. Much longer conversation. I'll just leave that as a teaser for future. The second one, though, is where I think Seldor has a great play in is this lunar ecosystem. I think I tell people all the time that I believe because of the companies we're investing in and the activities that we're seeing, we're going to see a growing population on the surface of the moon within 15 years. And what I love is that it will require the technologies from ACOR to be able to keep these people safe with the water supply. It will require being able to modify and to do repairs with friction welding technology from Fusematic. And what I'm hoping is that what enables us to get there and also to be able to do things from the moon will be the technology from SwissPod. If anyone, I used to have a requirement for my team that was doing a technology lab back at NASA to read the book 2076. It was The Moon is a Harsh Mistress. And in it is a nod to the SwissPod technology of being able to send through a Hyperloop resources back to Earth. So I see that what we have invested in Seldor will find its place on this lunar ecosystem.
Oh, absolutely. And for the three of you, can you share some examples of how startups, and for the founders who are with us here today, how startups can engage on practical terms with AWS, with Exim Bank, and Steven, getting back your NASA hat, like some programs that you think are tailored to companies that might be benefiting from all these organization supports. So why don't you get start with Mike?
Yeah, easy. So I'm here for you all. My job as a former founder myself, my job is the best job in the world. I get to just help founders and work with folks like Sydney and Stephen and everyone at Seldor. You know, as I've said many times to you, when you have founders that are interested, let them reach out or connect us. So anyone in the audience, you can either reach out directly to me. I'm pretty easy to find on LinkedIn, or get Sydney to send an email to both of us. We have a lot of different, you know, everyone is different. Everyone needs, you know, different things. So we can have a conversation and see where you want to be and how we get you there. And then another shameless plug for the AWS Space Accelerator. The applications are open right now and close on April 15th. So if you're at all interested, go ahead and apply or reach out to me and we can talk.
Yeah. So from XM Bank side, so again, we have two different, target markets. One is the exporter market. And for that, at any stage, we're happy to, have a conversation with them. If they're US based company or they're manufacturing goods here in the US, or they're US based service providers, we'd be happy to, have a conversation to see whether, we're able to support their international exports, basically, via insurance products or working capital financing. We also have, of course, products which are buyer financing products for the international customers of the U.S. exporters. We can do them on, corporate finance basis, sovereign guaranteed basis, even structured or project finance, where you're a startup SPV, and we look at the future cash flows. As long as they're contracted, you have a strong sponsor with skin in the game, we'd be able to lend funds to you so that you could buy goods and services from the U.S. and again, including launch and satellite systems or other things.
Excellent, thank you, Steven.
Yeah, so 4 different ways. Number one, for entrepreneurs is the technology. NASA has a whole lot of technology that is willing to license, and especially for startups, there's no fee for the first 3 years to be able to license the technology. We had some success with the New York Space Alliance, doing stuff all around the country. So definitely go to NASA's technology transfer, and you can go through their portfolio to see all of the couple of thousand technologies that are available for the public. Second, small business innovative research, small business technology transfer programs, 2 wonderful ways to be able to access funding, non-dilutive funding, to be able to support the development of your technology. NASA, I believe the colleges might have closed up, but look for it again at the end of this year for they're always needing technologies that most entrepreneurs can find a way to fit into. And then thirdly, there's other programs that it launches like NASA iTech. It's supposed to connect entrepreneurs to funding, but as Samvita can share, being able to be recognized as a finalist in that program helps open up doors. So even though it may not get funding right away, it is a great thing to participate in, and it enables future opportunities. So those are 3 things right away that entrepreneurs can do to be able to connect back to NASA.
Excellent. And the last question for everyone. I know that all of us are excited about science fiction. All of us are excited about what we're going to be seeing in the space sector in the next decade. Can you share with the audience one particular project or one source of inspiration in the space sector that you'd like to see coming into fruition in the next few years. So why don't we start with Steven, Reza, and then finish with Mike?
What I'm looking forward to, and I've alluded to this with the moon, is that we're seeing people like William Shatner and a whole bunch of billionaires getting up there. I'm looking forward to the day where space is available to people that want to go on a cruise or on a vacation, not to the billionaires. And I think within my lifetime, we'll see space open up for people to be able to work and live in space and not have to require to write a check for $10 billion.
Awesome. Likewise. Reza?
For me, free democratic access to internet. That's number one for me, and I'm actually quite inspired by what's happening in Ukraine and folks getting access to internet. So that's what really inspires me.
Fantastic. And Mike?
I'm really excited about a lot of ideas that I hear around sustainability in space, and that can mean a lot of things. So like space domain awareness, and we need to clean up the debris and be aware of it. But especially like how do we build, in 15 years when we're all living on the moon and we're having the 15th annual Seldor Capital meeting on a lunar base, how are we building with materials that are local and sustaining ourselves as a species? And I'll just leave you with one quick example. There was a Reddit AMA with a Manchester scientist a few months back, and he has developed a way to use blood proteins mixed with lunar regolith to 3D print building blocks, right? So you can also do it with pulses like beans and lentils. You don't have to use the astronauts. But the idea is like there are a lot of really exciting experiments going on right now that are going to be turning into real world applications for sustaining ourselves on interplanetary bodies, and that is really exciting to me.
Fantastic. Oh, once again, thanks so much, Mike, Reza, and Steven, for joining this very exciting panel. And now we're transitioning to our next discussion.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us on. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Take care.
And we talked a lot about the moon, and why not discussing specifically what's going to happen on the lunar surface in 2022. So I would like to get on the stage Alan Pereira, our venture partner and general counsel, who will be moderating this session.
So today, for the first time basically in the history of human civilization, we have a clear path set out for the exploration and human settlement on the moon. Through our work at Seldor Capital, we've had the first row seat really to observe this organic growth of the lunar commercial ecosystem, which includes different industries and verticals such as transportation, both to the moon and on the moon, space resource utilization, data and communication services, and the list just goes on. This opens up a never seen before array of possibilities for integration, synergies, and applications and creativity by founders anywhere. So we thought it was timely and just a great opportunity during this annual meeting to chat with some of our startups on their views on different aspects of lunar exploration. So I'd like to start by first introducing our panelists, and we'll go from there. So first, I'd like to introduce to you Miguel Ayala. Miguel has more than 20 years of experience in engineering, leadership, and management of multidisciplinary engineering teams, developing aircraft, launch vehicles, spacecraft, and associated ground support equipment in very high-profile government and commercial space programs. Some of the programs that Miguel worked include the Vulcan rocket, the Orient spacecraft, and he also participated in the Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy rockets at SpaceX. So thank you, Miguel, for joining us, and welcome to the panel.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Thanks a lot.
Great. Then next, we have Barbara Belvisi. Barbara is an entrepreneur passionate about space, biology, and AI. She started her career in finance at 22, investing in tech companies worldwide, and launched several global initiatives. In doing some research about Barbara, I found out that she is in the top 10 women in tech in France and part of Forbes 100 in Europe. Barbara is also self-taught in engineering, architecture. She spent a year with NASA engineers before launching Interstellar Lab. Next, I'd like to introduce to you Jeremiah Pate. Jeremiah is a co-founder and CEO of Lunasonde. Prior to founding Lunasonde, Jeremiah developed and patented Amelia, it's a machine learning-based aircraft safety system. He also worked with artificial intelligence for Parkinson's disease. And this work has also earned him, besides international attention, a great honor. There's an asteroid 34104, named in honor of Jeremiah's research on Parkinson's. So welcome, Jeremiah, to the panel. And lastly, I'd like to welcome to the stage Mark Matulshin. Mark is the COO of Lone Star Lunar Development. He has a doctorate in aerospace engineering and extensive experience across the US, Europe, and Asia, and South America. He spent 13 years at Google, where he turned around and scaled up hardware manufacturing for Google's global data center build-out and advanced Android prototype devices. Prior to Lone Star, Mark was the CEO of ISI USA, a synthetic arbitrary radar constellation startup based in Finland. So welcome, Mark, to the stage.
Thank you.
Great. So everyone, I hope this is an open discussion, and hopefully if we have time, we'll bring in some questions from the audience. But, I'd like to start just by asking each one of you to quickly give us your views on what you think are the most important recent developments regarding the human exploration of the moon. Let's start with Barbara, and then we'll go on from there.
So what are you said, what are the technology we need to develop, the most important technology? I mean, it's fascinating to finally see that humans gonna get back to the moon very, very soon, and we waited more than 50 years for that to happen. So at least we're gonna get back. I'm super excited for this year. We'll see, a lot of launch, more and more launch in low Earth orbit, and finally getting to the moon. In our case, for Interstellar, we're working on small payloads to be able to carry life on the moon, so to bring plants on the surface of the moon. The last who did that were the Chinese, and it was 2 years ago. So it's time to bring more life on the on the moon.
Thank you, Miguel. So what excites you about the recent developments regarding human lunar exploration?
Well, I am so happy that NASA and the government is working more with private companies. Like, it was nice to see that SpaceX is going to be working, building a moon lander, and then Blue Origin and other companies, and also the Eclipse program, Intuitive Machines in the mix, Astrobotics and Mass in Space. I mean, there's it's really exciting to see that. We haven't seen this level of activity, like Barbara said, in the last 50 years. It's crazy. Like, when you look at the aviation industry, in 60 years, it did quite a bit of progress. But then in the space sector, it feels like in the last 50 years we haven't really done much. And so it's really happy. I mean, it's really great to see a lot of activity, especially in the recent years.
Very well, Mark. What's your take?
Absolutely, the CLIPS program. I think the CLIPS program creates the sort of leverage points for a lot of activity. The power of CLIPS is that it builds a sustainable commercial basis for lunar activity, so that we're not on these cycles of government programs, which can have a political inspiration that maybe goes away, that we saw in Apollo, but actually a sustainable commercial foundation. And that's incredibly important. The CLIPS program provides a competitive marketplace for very affordable kilograms on the moon. And so you're removing this huge impediment. So if you look at these external dependencies, you can start with launch, which has now been nicely addressed in an affordable way by SpaceX, and others will follow. And then now the landers, you have this profusion of landers coming online. So there is this diversity in competition. So having a commercial foundation that follows in the footsteps of commercial cargo to space station, commercial crew to space station, and now a commercial basis for the moon with CLIPS that also does the next thing. So you kind of maximize taxpayer investment, but at the same time, you're also creating commercial opportunities for private sector financing like Seldor investors, so that now not only do you get the public programs like Artemis and other activities, but you also have this jumping off point for commercial activity to happen as well on the moon. And so CLIPS is a really, really vital and innovative program for that. I think it's fantastically important. When I saw this question, I really didn't hesitate with my answer. And I would say then that if I can reshape the question a little bit, it's not just exploration, it's also exploitations, that we need to have this commercial exploitation of lunar resources and innovative business ideas for lunar activities.
Perfect, Mark. I'll get back to you on a few follow-up questions after that. Jeremiah, so finally, what excites you most in the recent developments?
I definitely concur with the previous answer that the delivery problem to the moon is really a bottleneck that's starting to be solved. All the companies are being decoupled from a lot of the overdue launchers, shall we say, like SLS and the Lunar Gateway. But we're now no longer at the whims of congressional budget cycles, but we can actually launch payloads to the moon through partners like SpaceX. I just think back to the Space IL mission that occurred a couple of years ago. And while that mission didn't receive a huge amount of coverage, it really is historic that a private company can land something on the moon without really involving, without being part of a government project, but just can take a payload and land it on the lunar surface. That really is the stepping stone to having business operations in the lunar environment.
Very well. Well, thank you. Thank you, everyone. And now on to our second question. Perhaps related to your own experience with your companies and otherwise, how can lunar exploration positively impact our planet commercially or otherwise? Let's start with you, Miguel, this time.
Well, so I see lunar exploration and like Mark said, lunar exploitation as the stepping stone for all of humanity to prepare for exploring and exploiting the rest of space. Right? With the solar system, I see a tremendous potential in the on the asteroids and Mars, and I feel like we need to be moving towards transitioning, like mining from the planet Earth to the moon, to Mars, to other parts where we don't have we're not putting in danger the environment. Like I was born and raised in Peru in the mountains, and I saw firsthand what mining does to rural areas in the world, and it's at the end of the day, we may be able to collect some precious metals in those mountains in the Andes, but it comes at a cost. It comes at the cost of human lives and the environment. And anyway, I would love to. This is the reason. This is why I'm doing what I'm doing. I want to contribute to to protecting our planet and expanding our humanity into space, so that we go out there and grab these resources from out there and bring them back to to keep our planet in a good, in a healthy state. And anyway, so basically, now how that relates to what I'm doing is that what we're doing is that what's so awesome about our technology, about propulsion technology, is that there are raw materials on the moon that we can use to produce our propellants. So imagine being able to and not have to carry kerosene or methane or any other sort of fuel to the moon to power rockets or moon landers or satellites. Just being able to produce them there on the moon, and then we could use we could think about the moon as like in the future, like a pit stop where you, on your way to Mars, you stop there, you fill up, and you keep going. So that's the future that I see, and that's what we're doing here. And I'm proud that we're already this far along, that we have something that we can actually make on the moon.
Awesome, Miguel. Thank you. Jeremiah, if I could move on to you next.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely think that the resources on the moon are extremely compelling. That's one of the founding reasons for Lunazon, is prospecting resources in space, really having a better idea of where we can find resources on the moon, and being even more efficient about resource extraction in the lunar environment than we have been on Earth. The irony about a technology like what Lunazon is developing is that actually, in many cases, the necessity of using the technology in space is even more than it is on Earth, simply because for us, in terms of resource exploration on Earth, you can always just send someone on site, send a geologist to a spot to look for resources, sample the rocks. That's not exactly something you can do quite easily on the moon. You can't just go to a spot and drill a hole in the ground and take it back to a lab very easily. So we see this as a tool that's going to allow us to really have scalable mineral extraction on the moon, but do that in a sustainable way.
Perfect. Thank you, Jeremiah. And Mark, finally, what's your take on this?
Yeah, so first, I think there is interesting exploration to be done, like what Lunazon is proposing, doing subsurface radars. Super important. We didn't get enough of that out of Apollo, and there's exploration to be done there in terms of lava tubes. But I'd answer it in a couple of tiered ways. One is Miguel touched on this, which is just philosophically, a qualified investor in Seldor Capital Investors, you don't invest in one thing. You spread your bets and you diversify, and that's what we need to do for humanity at a planetary level. And so we should be doing that beyond Earth. More specifically, what the moon can provide to us is not only a stepping stone to asteroids and other opportunities, as well as in situ resources that Jeremiah touched on, but also the moon is the largest satellite of Earth. It provides a unique and stable platform for Earth observation, for telecom, and in our case for Lone Star, for data services. So I see it as a tremendous platform to help improve life on Earth, as well as be part of what is really a natural progression.
Great, thank you. Now, Barbara, I left you for the end on purpose because your solutions have such parallel applications. So very excited to hear your take on this question.
Sure. Thank you, Alan. I agree with everything that you guys just said, and also looking at the moon as a platform to develop technology that have tremendous application on Earth. And in our case, as Alan mentioned, if you're not familiar with what we're doing, so we're working on developing an inflatable structure where we control the atmospheric climatic condition and we grow plants inside. And of course we're working on a it's going to be a step-by-step approach. We start with a small payload, and then we develop more and more our system so we can install a greenhouse on the moon. But there is a lot we can learn by doing that, and especially for agriculture on Earth. And so right now we have this product. Greenhouse we've been developing for terrestrial application, at the same time working on low Earth orbit and the lunar system. But many, I mean, it's one of the main problem is, of course, the how to optimize resource power consumption, how to reuse all the resources and to be super efficient when you're in space, and that's key to agriculture right now on Earth. How do we use less water, and how do we recycle the water, because agriculture is generating a lot of polluted water and that we don't recycle. And all of those problematics you need to solve to build a sustainable moon base, and that's direct application on Earth. And so, I mean, in agriculture is just an example in our field, and in what we're doing. But it's over the past 50 years, so many technology have been used on herbs. CO2 sequestration technology, CO2 capture technology, water filtration system, and I mean, just to name a few. Even indoor farming solution is coming from NASA. Is coming from NASA technology. So everything that is used right now to grow indoors, it's literally coming from NASA study to grow plants in space. So I think there are even a lot of technology we don't imagine the positive impact that it's going to have on Earth, and I can't wait for humans to have a base on the moon and to settle there.
Great, thank you. Same here. And now we have a little bit of time left, so we'll start a bit earlier. So we'll extend this conversation a bit if you guys have time to stick around. And we had a great question, and I think your answer is just a nice bridge to it, Barbara, from Josh Wagner. Josh, thank you for the question. Josh is one of our LPs. And the question is basically, how can we exploit lunar resources, but in a sustainable manner? All of your companies have, are now part of this early rush to the moon to explore and exploit, as Mark has put it. How can we make sure that we don't do there or commit the same errors that we've committed here on Earth, and enjoy the fruits of a sustainable exploration of the moon? Let's start with you, Mark, if you don't mind.
Well, there are many ways to to utilize the moon. I can say what we've focused on at Lone Star is entirely sustainable. And in fact, it helps with Earth sustainability in the sense that we can provide, first of all, for the moon, you're initially going to be powered by solar sources. There are going to have to be additional power sources in use, but you get just in the case of solar, you get a lot more energy per square meter on the moon than you do get on Earth. And since we're working in more of the edge computing and data storage environment, you don't have any of the Earth heating. You could have, like, say, an obvious example would be, say, cryptocurrency. If you're doing data mining on the moon, you can do that in an entirely green way. You could have the first green currency, actually. And whereas on Earth, it takes a lot of compute power and a lot of heat that goes into the atmosphere that people tend to overlook. I mean, crypto by itself sucks down an enormous amount of utilities. Now, that's a significant amount of power to generate and significant infrastructure on the moon if you were to replicate it all. But as an illustration, that would be an example. And then in addition to that, we're also focused on providing data services to science and technology development on the moon, and then providing the right bandwidth for all of these opportunities to proliferate. So I think on the data services side of it, edge computing and storage, it's entirely sustainable by itself on the moon, but it can also remove some of that climate impact from the Earth.
Great, thank you, Mark. Miguel, if I could move to you next, be great to hear your take.
Sure. So, Mark, great response there. This is actually a very interesting question, and it's something that we need to think about, before we go out there. Sometimes because of political push, we can just rush and settle and do whatever, and then later on we go, oh, now what? and we've been through it before here, right? We've seen some of the things that we've done in the past, and now learning from all our mistakes. I think there are some things that we can do, and in our now, what we are focusing on is not taking toxic stuff to the moon. Basically, because if you like at least here, at least on the planet, you can release toxics. I mean, it's bad for the environment, but you can at least release toxics into the air. There are ways to prevent exposure to toxics by humans, right? However, on the moon, because there's no oxygen, because there's no there's nothing out there. A lot of the equipment, a lot of the tools that we use are going to be like we're going to be like confined in certain spaces. So the thing is, if we continue to use, let's say, hydrogen, for example, hydrogen is the most common propellant used to power spacecraft like satellites and landers and things like that. Now, if as we increase lunar activity, imagine powering all these landers and rovers with hydrogen. That is just that's a huge problem waiting to happen. And before we go too far, continuing to use hydrogen, that we want to we want to transition. We want to help transition from using hydrogen to using something that's completely, almost entirely non-toxic, and it's not. If you're exposed to it, it doesn't. There's still ways of getting escaping from it, and basically the worst thing that happens is you get some skin irritation, and that's about it. And of course, as long as you don't drink the propellant, you should be okay. But like we've people that handle hydrogen can tell you that it is some nasty stuff. It's been lab tests have shown that it's carcinogenic. So it's anyway, as we start exploring the moon, and as we start working in some of these confined spaces, we really need to be careful about not taking toxic chemicals and making the whole process more difficult than it needs to be.
Understood. Thank you, Miguel. Barbara, what's your view on this?
I can't agree more with Mark and Miguel. I think sustainability and reusability is also something that we need to take into all our design principle when it comes to designing a base on the moon. And not only the base, I agree. Also, the question of the propellant and how we get there. And I think this is something that needs to be like pretty much mandatory in all our approach on designing the system that we're going to use on the moon. And we should be very careful with that, because I agree with the pressing agenda and all the political pressure right now, and the relationship and what's happening right now with Russia, which is absolutely not helping. And I agree, we should be very careful, because there is a risk that, getting caught in this crazy race, we just we move forward too quick, and we reiterate some of the stupid mistakes we already made on Earth. The good, though I'm pretty much I'm very optimistic that a lot of us, a lot of people that are working in, designing future system and solutions that are going to be used on the moon, we are very concerned about sustainability and reusability, and this is something that we all share in our core. So I'm pretty positive, but I think we should be overall careful.
Very well. Thank you, Barbara. Jeremiah, what's your view on this?
So really, that is one of the reasons why I started Lunason, is how do we explore materials sustainably on the surface? And I think one of the obviously the largest topics when it comes to lunar exploration is mining and resource extraction. And our goal is that there will be no open pit mining on the moon. There's going to be no kind of these scattershot approaches towards extracting resources, but by knowing exactly where a given resource is, we'll be able to pinpoint and more or less do surgery on the lunar subsurface, where you can extract a certain metal that's in a given localized area without having to remove a huge amount of regolith in order to find a material. So we think that really a technology like ours is going to be extremely helpful in sustainable lunar development.
We agree, but we are biased, Jeremiah. But guys, just moving on. Roberto Alvarez, our venture partner, had a question here. But what is the missing link, or what's missing right now to speed up the sustainable development of the moon? And then in connection with that, as our time approaches, I'd like to ask each one of you just to tell us what are excited to see in the next 5-10 years in terms of moon exploration development. Thank you. Let's start with you, Mark, first.
Sure, I'll jump on that. I have a couple of ideas there. The most important thing, let's parse it. Technology first. The most important thing, I think, is power. We have to have an improved power solution for the moon. It's a 14-day lunar night. It gets cold enough to crack a battery. We need to be able to not just survive, but to thrive through the night. And so I think power becomes a really significant limitation. There are a number of other technologies involved, depending on what the particular application is, but from a basic infrastructure technology, that's top of my list. I would also, I think it's very interesting that Robert mentioned legal frameworks. One thing that we have spent a lot of time on at Lone Star is making sure that we have the right legal framework to be able to offer our services. And so the way we've structured it is, and you can read a recent law review article that we just published, that we have different the moon is not owned by anyone, but a country with a presence on the moon does have a jurisdiction, or a sovereignty, if you will, without getting into the legal definitions of sovereignty. And our intent is that, and we've laid this out in the legal argument, is that we can have a multi-jurisdiction location because of how we've structured the effort. And so some data is very sensitive, and there can be legal restrictions in not being able to put it outside your country's border, for example. And you can see now that countries are beginning to create data embassies where they're taking critical data and they're actually storing them in embassies in other countries as backups because they're under an existential threat, like in the Baltics. And that's where this example is taken from. So we've got that same structure, but on the moon, so that if you need to be off planet, but in country, we can accommodate that.
Perfect. Thank you. So, Barbara, back to you and to hear your thoughts on this.
Sure, I agree with the power. It's a it's a big problem. It gets really cold, and we need to figure this out. It's not going to be only about the insulation and how the habitat and the structure is going to protect us, but there is really a power optimization and a source of power that needs to be more, that needs and require technology development and innovation right now. In terms of one of the things that I'm the most excited of in the coming years, I mean, of course I'm biased because of because of what we've been working on, but for me it's really about building a permanent presence for humans on the moon. I think it's gonna be it's really going to change everything that people think about space exploration. 'Cause it never happened before. It's like for first time we're settling on on another on on another celestial body than the Earth. So that's really mind blowing, and it's gonna be and everyone will watch this. So like the entire planet will have their eyes on humans settling on the moon, and that's and I think it's yeah, I think it's really it's super inspirational, and it's probably gonna change a lot of how what's happening on Earth and the behavior of people, and even how they behave with our planet, because they will grow and we will grow an even bigger consciousness of how precious it is what we have right now on Earth. So that's what's getting me really excited.
It's getting me too. Thank you, Barbara, for that. Miguel, now it's to you.
Thank you. Apologies for the noise. We are mixing propellant downstairs.
If it wasn't you, I wouldn't believe it.
Don't worry, it's non-toxic. Will be fine. so anyway, yeah, we'll be testing a rocket engine pretty soon, hopefully next week. So that's why we're preparing for the test. But going back to the topic. So, oh man, the missing link really is more public. I mean, for me, this is based on what I've experienced. More public awareness, more interest from the public, from the business sector, from the general public about the value of going to the moon, about the value of going to space. I think that. What Jeff Bezos and Richard Branson did last year, by going to space. So what they did, on one side, some people thought, oh yeah, those rich guys, they whatever. But then at the same time, what that did is also just bring more people curious about what's going on. And now with more people going to space, like even Pete from Saturday Night Live, it just brings more people to this industry. Because earlier, like Steven said, in this industry. This industry is still perceived to be like really capital intensive, only for big corporations, for big governments, and the time to revenue is long, and like all that stuff. But as you guys are showing here, some of the companies in the portfolio already have revenue, and even in our model, we have a business plan that allows us to generate revenue sooner than later. And anyway, there are many opportunities for investment in space that are quicker, and there are a lot of cool things. And also the biggest link, the biggest link that's missing with the general public is that a lot of people just are not aware of how space exploration, how activities on orbit and even on the moon impact their daily lives. And I'm glad that there are more people in the media, more people just speaking more about it. And I'm glad that we're doing these things, taking rich people to orbit, or at least suborbit. So just to get, bring more people interested, because it would be awesome. I think once we realize like how impactful space is for humanity, we'll see a lot more investment going into it. Just like the internet, for example, way back in the 80s, for example, it was something that only government people and big corporations talked about. In fact, back in the 90s, if you guys remember the AOL days, back then, if you had an AOL account, you were considered to be, oh, nerdy, you're socially inept. But now everybody has Facebook, everybody has a LinkedIn profile, and you're nobody if you don't have one. So it's a whole it's a complete change of mindset. So I hope that we get
Sure.
there soon. So
Thank you.
that's my
Thank you,
point.
Miguel. Hopefully. Thank you so much for that. Now, Jeremiah, over to you.
So I would say that the gap in terms of lunar exploration and exploitation, I think is still transportation. It's always been transportation, in my opinion, but at the end of the day, the only options to get to the moon now are very much fairly low mass, high price per kilogram. Even some of the private companies out there, I remember we considered doing a lunar project, and it was something like $2 million for a half a U of space. And as long as prices are like that there really isn't going to be commerce in lunar orbit or lunar surface. And so I think that's still something that needs to be addressed. I think SpaceX is doing a great job of pushing that towards something that's more affordable, and hopefully with some of the other ventures, we start to see a shift in that direction. But I think that's still the rate limiting step when it comes to starting business activity in lunar space. And kind of along those lines, I would say that the thing I'm most excited about is SpaceX's development of the Starship rocket. I think that is really going to open up lunar space for commerce for sure.
Very well. Thank you. And also, we unfortunately have to end here. Our time's up. So I wanted to thank all the panelists for joining us. Thank you for your insight. And hopefully we'll continue this conversation in a different forum at some point. Thank you, guys. Now back over to you, Sydney.
We started today by talking about how space impacts our lives and how entrepreneurs are making a difference in the way that we see space. I agree that with some of the panelists who mentioned that we need to reshape our narrative in order to be more convincing and to gather support. And finalizing the event with discussion about the moon is very timely. And the main reason it is because a lot of people ask us, like, why you're thinking about the moon when there are so many problems here in our planet? And the answer is that by forcing us to do the impossible, by going to the moon and inspiring the present and future generations, we are preparing humanity to address problems in a very, very different way. We cannot face the challenges of the 21st century with the tools of the 20th century. Those extreme conditions that force us to rethink everything that we take for granted in our planet will be the source of solutions that we need in order to build our sustainable life here on Earth and elsewhere. So this is the end of our event today. I just wanted to thank our VPs, our founders, our investors. And this is not the end of the journey. This is the beginning. And I would like to start the beginning of our next steps with a call for action. I know that in the audience, there are several investors who are interested in learning more about Seldor Capital and about our companies. So please reach out, and we are happy to clarify anything that you might want to know more about them, about our activities. I also know that there are some founders who are excited about the possibility of partnering with us and our companies. So we are also welcoming your connections, and we can start doing this right now. Finally, there are corporations. You saw some examples here of how established organizations are also part of the ecosystem and how they are contributing to development of the space, commercial space sector. So please feel free to reach out as well if you believe that there's a room for you to collaborate on our efforts. Any one of our team will be very happy to continue this conversation offline. Thank you. See you next time.